Praise the Lord, brothers and sisters. Our reading for today is from John chapter 10, verses 22 to 30. At that time, the feast of dedication took place at Jerusalem. It was winter, and Jesus was walking in the temple in the colonnade of Solomon. So the Jews gathered around him and said to him, "How long will you keep us in suspense? If you are the Christ, tell us plainly." Jesus answered them, "I told you, and you do not believe me. The works that I do in my Father's name bear witness about me. But you do not believe me, because you are not among my sheep. My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. I give them eternal life, and they will never perish, and no one will snatch them out of my hand. My Father, who has given them to me, is greater than all, and no one is able to snatch them out of my Father's hand. I and the Father are one." So when Jesus went to the temple of Solomon at the feast of the dedication, some Jews surrounded him and they began asking him that if you are the Christ, the Messiah, then just plainly tell us, don't keep us in suspense. And Jesus responds by saying, "I've told you time and time again that I am who I claim to be, and by miracles, my whatever I work, my sermons, they all testify to the fact that I am telling the truth." The Jews, their hearts were hardened and they were filled with pride and prejudice against Jesus. They were always looking for ways to falsify Jesus. So when Jesus cast out the demon, they said that he did this through the power of Satan. When he healed the crippled man, they said that you're not supposed to heal the man on the Sabbath because it is unlawful to heal on the Sabbath. Even when he was being tried by Pilate, they told Pilate crucify him because he claimed to be the Son of God. So they were always looking for ways to falsify Jesus, to find some fault in Jesus. The reason being that their hearts were hardened. And if Jesus was telling the truth, if he claimed to be who he said he was, then they had to necessarily follow Jesus because he was the Messiah. So they were always looking for ways to try and falsify Jesus because they didn't want to follow Jesus. So Jesus, knowing this, knowing their heart, he tells them that all that I do it through the Father working through me. So all the miracles, all the wonders that Jesus performed, he did that through the power of God the Father working through him, and that these wonders and miracles and his sermons, whatever he told the people, they all testified to the fact that he was telling the truth. But the Jews, they did not want to listen to him, and their ears were closed to him. So Jesus told them that the reason you do not believe me is because you're not part of my flock. My flock know me, they hear me, and they follow me. So throughout the gospel, Jesus calls himself the good shepherd. And he does not call himself just the shepherd, he calls himself the good shepherd. And the reason being, he said that I am the good shepherd who will lay his life down for the sheep. So even in Psalm 23, King David tells us that he rejoices in the fact that the Lord is his shepherd because the Lord will lead him to rich pastures and he will lead him to still water. He will restore his soul and he will lead him on the path of righteousness. So if you have ever seen a sheepfold walking behind the shepherd, you will see that the flock, they never separate themselves from the shepherd. They always follow the shepherd and they are completely reliant on the shepherd for their food, their water, their stay to take care of them. They're completely reliant on the shepherd and they completely trust on the shepherd because if they depart from the shepherd, then they'll be lost and there's a possibility that they could get killed or be eaten or something like that. So they completely rely on the shepherd for to take care of them. And this is the relationship we need to have with Jesus, where we're completely reliant on him, where we completely trust him and give him our whole self and our whole will. Our will need to align with that of Jesus. So Saint Maximilian Kolbe says the formula to become a saint is a big W plus a small w. The big W stands for God's will and the small w stands for our will. So when our will and God's will are aligned, that's how we know we are on the path to righteousness. That's how we know we're the path to sainthood. And then Jesus tells them that whoever are part of my flock, they will never perish and I will give them eternal life. So sometimes we might have our own wills, our own desires, our own whatever we want to do. But Jesus tells us that we must forbid these and follow His will for our life because He knows the plans best for us. And so when we follow Him as sheep, when we become humble and leave our own desires and follow Him, He will lead us to heaven. He will lead us to green pastures because He knows best what's best for us. So when we follow him and completely give ourselves to him, he will lead us to heaven, and no one will be able to snatch us from his hand. And he says that whoever is protected by me, they are also protected by the Father's hand. He's saying that whoever the sheepfold, whoever belong to the sheepfold, the Father has given Jesus the sheepfold. So these sheepfold do not only belong to Jesus, they belong to the Father, and Jesus is leading them to heaven to the Father. So the Father and Jesus are always one, and they always act together. You cannot go to the Father without going through Jesus, because Jesus said that I am the way and the truth of the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. And therefore, Jesus emphasized that if you want to go to the Father, you cannot go through any other route. You have to go through me, because I am the only way to the Father. And Jesus and the Father being one, he said, whoever he protects, the Father also protects. The Father's hand of protection is also over there. And he is completely united to the Father. His will is completely united to the Father, and all that he did was completely united to the Father. But the Jews, they were so proud of themselves and so prejudiced that they didn't want to accept Jesus. They wanted to go directly to the Father. They wanted to do their own thing and get to heaven. And Jesus said, no, you cannot do your own thing. You have to follow me and follow what I am telling you if you want to get to heaven. But they were so full of themselves, their hearts were so hardened that they just wanted to follow their own will. And so the question we need to ask ourselves is, are we truly listening to Jesus' voice? Are we truly following him, and do we know him? Because Jesus' voice is like the voice of a parent or a mother or someone we know. Even if they call us from an unknown number, we can tell by the voice itself that it is the parent. Therefore, in the same way, we must be able to identify Jesus' voice so well when we are part of his flock, that we know when he's calling us, where he's calling us, and we can completely and perfectly do his will, like Jesus completely and perfectly did the Father's will. That's why he said, I and the Father are one, because he and the Father have one will, and they're perfectly united to one another. So even in heaven, the Father and the Son are perfectly united to one another, and the Father loves everyone who the Son loves, and no one can go to the Father except through the Son. So if you want to go through God, you cannot separate one God and another God. You have to go through one entire God. Therefore, the question we need to ask ourselves is, are we giving ourselves completely to Jesus? Are we humbling ourselves and becoming like sheep and going to Jesus? Or are we following our own wills and trying to get to heaven or get to wherever with our own wants and desires? Thank you.